What is going on, guys, and welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to be taking a look at what I think is the best position 5 in Dota 2 currently, and that is Warlock. He currently has a 54.6% win rate on Dota buff. This hero has been climbing so hard. He's been getting these little mini buffs pretty much every single patch pretty consistently until now. Pretty much everyone is playing him in the position 5 role. I guess he can be played as a position 4. I just don't see the perceived value in picking him as the 4 when you can play something a little more aggressive, as Warlock is pretty passive early on, like any typical support. When he used to be picked before, it was more for the lane, so you can be a heal bot, kind of like tree and protector, and just play for the sustain. Now you're playing for this poke chip damage, which is very good. And if you're playing Warlock with carry Viper and heroes of this nature where they just do a lot of poke damage, it's very strong because Fatal Bonds is such a strong ability, and it now actually spawns imps, which are actually pretty strong. On every unit that dies, it spawns an imp, and it actually does quite a bit of damage. It does 180 damage at max level, and there could be a lot of imps in a big team fight. When you have a bunch of people locked down, say a support dies or anything, that's a bunch of damage in a 400 AoE, which is pretty decent. And for a support, it's doing pretty good. And upheaval is honestly one of the best spells in his toolkit because that slow is absolutely ridiculous in such a big AoE. And if you throw your golems down, it's pretty much a team fight secured if you're doing it correctly. And if you play Warlock correctly, it's one of the best team fighting support heroes in the game. This hero just really doesn't do very well against heroes that can close the gap and pretty much run him over really quickly. So heroes like Broodmother, Ember, Storm, and Phantom Assassin can definitely deal with this hero a lot easier. Nature's Prophet does very well against this hero, but heroes that Warlock typically does very well against is illusion heroes such as Naga Siren, Terrorblade, Chaos Knight, and Meepo. It does very good against these heroes, as Fatal Bonds is such a strong tool for your team to be able to get rid of these pesky heroes nice and easy, especially against Meepo. Meepo is not as prevalent as he used to be in the current meta, but he's still quite strong. And if you see a Meepo pick, it could be very beneficial for you against the Meepo. If you have yourself a Warlock from any position, practically, it does very good. The shard actually allows you to use upheaval, and it spawns imps, which is pretty good. So you have imps coming out from Fatal Bonds, you have imps coming out from upheaval, which makes it really strong, and the slow is absolutely fantastic. So in a big team fight, when you have your golems ready to go and you have your upheaval going, for heroes that really have no easy way to get out, you're going to be forcing these heroes to buy force staffs. You're going to force them to buy Silver Edge or BKBs to be able to get away from this slow, because it is very pesky and it lasts 3 seconds after you even leave the AoE, which is a really big problem. And if you're channeling it, it can go all the way up to 100% slow, which is absolutely insane. Another reason why Warlock is pretty strong is because the golems actually got a 60% slow resistance, which was a really big problem of the golems being kited very easily with heroes like Venomancer and heroes that have big AoE slows. The golems would just be slowed to a crawl, and it was a really big problem because the hero wouldn't really get enough out of his ultimate unless you had your Aghanims and your refresher. Then there was too many golems for them to deal with, and you can still get a little bit of value. But nowadays with the 60% slow resistance, it is pretty strong. So these pesky heroes definitely don't do that much to the golems anymore. There's a bunch of talents for the golems as well, so they're definitely a lot stronger than they used to be. One of the things you need to keep in mind, even though you're playing him from position 5, you shouldn't really take a point in your Shadow Word unless it's absolutely necessary and you're playing up against a very aggressive lane and you're playing a defensive lane. Then sure, you can take a couple of skill points in it and it'll be quite fine. But then you still go for the max Fatal Bonds and always take a point in upheaval, even in the laning phase. It's going to be very beneficial for you, as if somebody dives you under tower or dives your carry under tower and you upheaval, they're practically going to die, especially if your carry is like a Sven or something along the lines of that, where you have a stun. You're going to be getting a pretty for sure kill, especially if the tower aggros to that enemy hero. It's going to be pretty easy kills, and they don't expect it in the early game, and most heroes don't have a way to get out. So definitely keep in mind, in the next game you guys are going to be playing, to be picking Warlock as your position 5, I definitely think you're going to be getting a lot more free MMR playing with this hero. His kit is pretty standard, pretty easy to play, and it'll surprise a lot of people with how much damage upheaval can actually do. And that is pre-shard. With the shard, it'll end up doing a lot more damage because it'll be spawning imps as well. These imps are no joke, and they're very strong. I definitely feel like Warlock might even catch a little mini nerf, but maybe not. We definitely have to see. I definitely think that this hero is absolutely incredible to play. It's very fun. A lot of people think Warlock used to be quite boring, but heal Warlock is boring however you look at it. But this is not heal Warlock. This is a very aggressive support that can be played with heroes like Slark, with Viper, You can play it with a Sven, you can play with a PA, and it would be nice and strong because the daggers are going to do some real good damage, and it's going to be a lot of poke damage with Fatal Bonds, spamming daggers and hitting creeps constantly. It's going to be quite good. It's also very good on a hero like Sven because he cleaves, so if you Fatal Bonds the wave, they're going to be taking a lot more damage a lot quicker because he's going to be hitting more units with the cleave. The build generally on this hero is Arcane Boots with Glimmer, then you go for a Wand. Then you could kind of go for a Shard, Aghanim Scepter, or Refresher. However you guys are feeling that game, depends how much farm you have. And if you don't really need a Glimmer, you feel like they can't really kill you, you're tanky enough, and the backline is pretty safe typically, or you have heroes that can defend the backline, then you can always go for a Force Staff instead of a Glimmer. That way you can help your team and get them out of really sticky situations. It's a pretty strong item build. You can go for items like Mech, you can go for Solar Crest as well. It's quite strong. If you feel like you're getting jumped quite easily and you want to tank up on your armor and reduce the physical damage or help your carry deal with physical damage, Solar Crest has always been a really good option for Warlock. Makes you very, very tanky. It's a very good choice. But pretty much the power spike on this hero is when you get to the late game where you have an Aghanim Scepter or at least a Refresher. It's very, very strong, and then this hero becomes a priority to kill. Otherwise, it's going to be a big problem in the team fights, and you're going to be taking away a lot of pressure from the rest of your team, as the enemy team is going to be putting a lot more priority on a position 5 Warlock rather than a position 4 carry or a mid or even an offlaner. Hopefully you guys learned a thing or two about Warlock. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. A like would be much appreciated. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.